Welcome back, guys. And this is a bit of a different job. Well, some different. And first go at the evolution power drill here. This one's the impactor. And unfortunately, I'll explain it a bit later, but unfortunately, I bought some drill heads and they don't really fit the screws too well. But I battled on and got all my beads screwed on and put a put a good few screws in every board. I'll explain more about that later. Just want to talk about this
I
buy
bought
off
this box
these
thinking that they
DeWalt
were all mixed.
drill bits. I thought they were
Bought
mixed
this box
box,
thinking they're all mixed, but they're not.
but they're all
They're all
I
the
think it's
same.
called P2, so they don't really grip them screws the best. But it'll have to do for now because I'm not going to go and buy any more little drill bits to keep me going. As you can see, you can screw beads on. It's not impossible. Just have to take your time. And these old boards, I've got them all PVA'd and scrimmed up. And I did find out how old they are. They're like 40 years old. And I'm going to give them all a wee lick of bonding, especially them rounds and up round the beads, the scrims. And the reason I'm bonding, I'm trying to hold it back, trying to slow down the setting of these old plasterboards. It's something, again, always sort of talk about experience, and how you actually get experience is doing jobs and actually just doing plastering, doing work, well, working on building sites. And the experience I got was one time I was plastering, let's call it a gauge, but it was massive. It was like a granny flat of a house. So I was plastering the upstairs. Everything went great. And then there was a couple of walls downstairs to plaster. They were all everything was boarded, so there was no floating or anything. Everything was just plasterboard, just skim. And I went to skim these walls, and they dried and set super quick. So I then PVA'd them and skimmed them, and they still dried super quick. And I couldn't really understand what was going on because I thought all the work had been done in this gauge at the same time. But turns out, no, the boards were like 15 years old. So, to me looking at them, they still looked white, they still looked clean, they weren't yellow or anything. But looking at them, you would have thought they're brand new, just like the upstairs boarding. But, like I said, there turned out they weren't. I didn't know until after it was all plastered. Again, the job turned out absolutely fine, but my arms, they weren't fine. They were quite sore and tired. So the whole moral of this point is you'd probably be better with old boards to really SBR them and maybe PVA them, or maybe even grit on this stage might be a good job just to hold back suction. So that's what I've done here. There's pure PVA painted on to every one of these boards, as sort of spreading it out as even as possible, and then everything scrimmed up and re-screwed because obviously these were done like 40 years ago, so they were nailed up, they weren't screwed, and screws are better than nails. So I've went and re-screwed it all, made sure there's no bouncing, re-scrimmed everything. Also the boards were round the wrong way, which kind of isn't great, but again, that's why we're bonding everything and PVAing it and re-screwing it, and buckles and braces. It's basically, if I owned this house, this is exactly the way I would go. The other alternative would be to overboard it all. I wouldn't bother ripping it all down these boards. They're actually pretty neat and tidy. But you could potentially overboard it with some fresh plasterboard and then skim it. But bonding and skimming it is probably maybe a wee bit cheaper. I'm not really sure because bonding's quite expensive at the minute. But labour wise, probably works out a bit cheaper. It's still adding good value to the house in the fact that, well, one, you're plastering the ceilings that were all these ceilings were tongue and groove wood previous, so you're sort of you're modernising it. But the bonding itself, as you know, some of you will know, some of you won't know, it is a fireproofing agent basically. So it's going to make these ceilings more fire resistant. It's going to make them warmer because it's an insulator, so it's going to keep them that wee bit warmer. And some people do believe that it holds back cracks. Not entirely convinced of that, but over my time plastering, I have tended to see skim popping off bonding, and that bonding popping off the plasterboard. So to me, it must be that wee bit more flexible than the finish coat. So and it's stickier. As far as I know, bonding really is made up of three main things: PVA, vermiculite, and finish. Believe it or not, that's the three main ingredients. If anybody there's from Gyprock or St. Govan and they want to correct me further, you're more than welcome to do so. But that's what I believe is in bonding. That's more or less it. That's why it's more expensive, because there's more products in it. It always does seem to go a bit further. Again, I'm putting this on, guys. I'm putting this on as neat and tidy as I can. And that's because it still is pulling in. It's still setting pretty quick, and I want to keep it neat so that I don't have to trowel it all up and or scrape it back if it does set. So the plan here is get it all scrimmed up, PVA'd, re-screwed, beads on, get the bonding coat on as neat and tidy as possible, keep everything nice and straight and tidy. Then I will brush it here shortly with the brush. I have to use more of a yard brush to get a nice, need a bit of a nice key in this, guys, as I plan on letting the bonding somewhat set before I plaster over it. I'm trying to avoid any blisters. And just to show you guys, stuff still usable, but here on the very first area I started, you could probably skim over it. Still a wee bit dopey on the surface, it's still a wee bit soft, but that'll allow me to be able to key it up with the floor brush. What the key does, it just gives you that extra bit of grip. Again, if you plaster it as the stuff's setting, it will be grand because they'll both bond each other as well. Just using the rag now here just to clean the angle. Again, the angle is pretty straight, and I'm going to break it up. I'm going to do the main part of the ceiling and the flat part of this beam, and then come back and skim left and right of it then. Same with the reveals, I'm going to break them up somewhat just to make things a little bit handier. But here we are with the cleanest plaster in the world, who is that clean he's going to brush his ceilings. But yeah, what the key does is, if it does tend to set off on me, which it is actually drying pretty quick, but if it goes rock hard, this key will still help it bond and adhere, not adhesive to the ceiling, but it will help it bond to the ceiling. It'll key it in, so it gives it grip, gives the skim coat something to grip to, something to bite onto, and it'll help lock the skim and the bonding together. Now, the bonding sticking to the boards, one, they are around the wrong way, but two, they've been PVA'd, and like I said, bonding is sticky. Worked loads of film jobs where we PVA'd wood basically on films. Even if you're doing a film set, most times it will be just timber, just 8x4 sheets of ply, and you'll PVA it or you'll grit it, you'll scrim up your joints, you'll bond it, you'll maybe do a texture. Just depends on the job. You might be carving it out to look like stone. You could be doing textures, make it look like a rough render or corroded render. Again, that's film work. We're not going to get onto that too much. But what I was saying there is that bonding is really sticky, and I've seen it last long times on top of wood. So on top of PVA plasterboard, I'm not just confident, I'm overconfident. And look at this, guys, have my reveals all filled out, everything's still keyed up, but I've got the main part of the ceiling on here. It's only 1 o'clock, so if I started here, say we started at about 7:45, it shows you how quickly these boards are still drying in, and I'm feeling it. But luckily I've got the bulk of it all done, and I just have on this room, I just have some reveals left to hit. But as you see, this is finished. The main majority bulk of the ceiling is all finished, and now these wee bits left to do. What you will find is, if you let your bonding go more brown like that on high suction areas, it means that the moisture is more absorbed into the plasterboard or the background, and most likely won't suck in just as much. Whereas I sort of did this ceiling as the bonding setting, so it really pulls in quite a lot. There's a nice wee look at the ceiling, guys, all finished up. All the other wee bits tidied up. All the reels done. Two windows look exactly the same. That was my aim. Bit tricky. One window was like 72 inches and the other one was 71. So a bit tricky just to make sure that the wee detail parts all look the same. I wanted four that looked the same. Boom, boom, boom. I didn't want one window looking different than the other window because both windows are. The joiner was obviously pretty good. They're both lined up pretty well that road, but obviously the woodwork around them just a wee bit off. But nothing we can't overcome. And here's another look at another big chunky ceiling. As you can see, stole a wee bit of preparation on the day previous when I did all this work, and I stuck some skimming stop beads on ready to go. But again, very awkward ceiling, this one. It's long, it's all got different levels on it, up and down. Again, same boards, 30, 40 year old boards. I think they were 40 year olds boards, as I think the guy that did the work did his signature on them. But yeah, it just showed you how high they were there, guys. It's literally needing my big ladders and my big stilts to get anywhere near these things. And you can see this is a day on bond and skimmed. When do you ever see bond and skim dry and white so quickly? Take it from me, not often. Again, I tend to find upstairs on houses sets quicker because of the heat rising in the house. Quite warm weather here. This was a bit awkward to do as well. But yeah, got my stop beads on, nice and flush as possible to the original wall here. Still need to fill that out, but I'll get that after I scrim, PVA, bond and skim this big brute of a ceiling. Again, very, very heavy. Not heavy, very high ceiling. And all this stuff here is going to be mixed up by the Evolution bocce part mixing drill. So it's going to, I think I'm going to use the Ruby on this one actually. And I'll save the batteries for smaller jobs. But yeah, not too bad boarding, tidy enough. There's another bead screwed on, ready to go. That'll be the next hit. I think I'll concentrate on this big one, get it all prepped. As you can see, a lot of screws in there. It's actually well nailed. Not too much movement in the boards. There was 3 areas without the whole house that I did just want to make the homeowner aware. And there you go, guys. It was plasterboarded by Coulter, or I'm not sure what the name is, but in November '87. So pretty old boards. Gyptex, probably Gyprock now. They're working from Dublin. So I had a wee bit of travelling to do to get up onto this ceiling. At least 2 hour drive. Maybe even longer back then. Cars wouldn't have been as good, would they? And the roads certainly weren't as good back and forward. So I was using, between the two of these, I've been using them quite a lot on this one. Again, I need to get a better drill bit to catch. But I did sort of fancy the drill a wee bit more than the impactor, which is weird because on the Makita ones I fancied the impactor more than I liked the drill. So that was the before, guys. This is the after shot of the whole job. What then? What do you think? Tidy enough? Do you think the guy boarded it will be well impressed with it? With his work still sitting all this time? I have a lot of cleaning to do. Get the rough off it. Tend to think we're pretty clean as plasterers. I know that the homeowners did a cracking job cleaning up after us as well. They actually really polished the place off. You'd honestly swear it would never even been. But look at the height. I had to get up to my hip. And I'm quite tall, so that's probably, it's probably near 3 foot high. So yeah, pretty big, guys. Big bulky ceiling. But look at this masterpiece as well. Again, a lot of wee nooks and crannies in around the place, and I also swiped in all these angles for the painter, or the homeowner. I'm not sure who's doing the painting. Skimming stop bead there. But yeah, a lot of work, guys. Experience taught me how to tackle old plasterboard like this. Again, like I said, you could put fresh boards on and go ahead, but at the cost of £14 a sheet and all that extra manpower, I think this was probably the better way to go. Probably the way I would have went if it was my own house, no doubt. But you can let me know in the comments what your expert opinions would be and how you would have went about replastering all these old boards, or how you would have tackled it.
What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.